Welcome back. Now it's time to dive into the DEI effect, where we talk about the stories and the people that are making the impact in this little conversation we're having around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm back with the one and only Karrah Herring, who has this most amazing position, and it's the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity. Let's start by talking about why did we name it that with the opportunity as we start talking about DEI?
Well, it's actually the Office of the Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Officer. And they were pretty intentional when they named the office, leaving the word diversity out. I think they really wanted to focus on the equity and inclusion and opportunity pieces, which makes sense. And I can tell you why. I think, when it comes to the word diversity right now, especially within conservative environments, people get really, really worked up when they hear diversity, right? And so I think the governor and his team were intentional about using equity, inclusion, and opportunity because, like you said, in other conversations we've had, who's going to argue with inclusion? Who's going to argue with opportunity? And if you do, you're probably not someone worth having that argument with, right? And so they were intentional about the name, and I'm glad that they named it what they did.
The movement now, I'm only calling that because we got to wait and see what happens with it.
Yeah.
DEI. Talk to me about what are we doing well within the DEI, and where do we need the most work?
We need work in all of it, in my opinion. I would say that the D piece, diversity, we don't really have a choice there. The United States is becoming more diverse, whether we like it or not. You can look at the census data. I'm very big on researching the data, the numbers. By 2042, I believe that they said that, the white population will be the minority. So that is the direction we're headed in. So whether we like it or not, diversity is going to be a part of the fabric of who the United States is and is becoming. I think with equity and inclusion, organizations are just going to have to be more intentional about thinking about what are the gaps that we're seeing, whether that's in housing or food scarcity or education, and how can we employ equity to really close those gaps? We all have to do a better job of that. The state of Indiana is being more intentional about it now with this new initiative and with some of the folks in different agencies that have been working on this, but there's work. And then the inclusion piece, I think, is our biggest opportunity. And I will give you an example. When I was in New York this summer with my daughter to take her to visit the school she's going to up in Soho, New York, we had a fantastic time. I could go into a high-end designer store, walk in, people would come over to me, how can we help you? What do you need? There are stores that I walk into in Indiana and people will look at me like you do not belong here. That is an inclusion issue, right? That is an inclusion issue and an issue around really creating a culture and a climate where we all feel accepted no matter what space we go into. We have to do a better job of that in Indiana. And I can tell you that as a Black woman with multiple degrees and a great salary, and I own multiple homes and I have nice cars, I still experience that type of exclusion from certain environments. We have to fix that.
Well, what's interesting about that is, so I have a lot of friends that are like, yeah, but Travis, you made it. And if you can make it, then everybody can make it. And I have to break it down for them going, there are a lot of reasons why I, quote unquote, made it, first of all.
Exactly.
And second of all, there are things that I had. I mean, athletics was my thing, right? I was a 3-sport athlete, played at high levels. And so there was opportunities that I had, privileges that were attached to my ability to play football or basketball that everybody didn't get.
Right.
As a Black woman, successful from the perspective of education, opportunity, position, influence, I'm sure you get people who are like, yeah, but if you made it, then everybody else can and should. How does that make you feel? What's your thought process around that?
I just want people to understand that, the Black community is not a monolith. And so when you talk about you making it or me making it, like you said, quote unquote, I had 2 parents. My parents have been married for almost 50 years. They instilled in us hard work and faith and a mind to serve. That's not the norm for everyone. And so I had that privilege attached to me. I had the privilege of my parents paying for undergrad, so I didn't have to go into debt, right? I had those privileges attached. There's so many different factors that play into why a particular person so-called makes it. And when you look at the greater number of folks in the United States, especially in the Black community, that's not the story. And the data doesn't lie. We are often at the top of the worst outcomes and at the bottom of the best outcomes. And so when you start to pull the data, which is why my team was very focused on being data driven with the work, it tells the story that opportunities like that are not normal or there for everyone. We were very blessed, right? And we took advantage of that. We worked hard. And don't get me wrong, we still had to work hard. We still had to 100%. Work hard, and we're still working hard to this day. but to acknowledge that there were things that worked out in our favor that weren't always in our own control. It's just the environments that we were in. You know, not everybody has that.
How long or when do you think DEI won't be the conversation because it's actually a part of our DNA? I mean, we don't have to have a chief equity officer, or we don't have to have them because we do it. Is that even reality?
I think it can be a reality, but this is when we'll know it's a reality. When I look at your typical Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company, and the Black people or the Latino people or the Asian people are not just the DE&I officers, but they're actually the COOs and the CEOs and the CFOs. When we start to see that diversity on boards and trustees, like boards of trustees and boards of directors, and the people of color aren't just there to fill a quota or to like check a box, that's when we can get rid of our chief equity, inclusion, and opportunity officer roles. But until we actually start to live this in all of our positions and all of our opportunities, we're going to need somebody who's going to be focused on this work for sure.
You know, coming from the position in the state of Indiana, you have this whole work, you know, that you've been on path. And so what is the state of Indiana specifically doing, you know, in your role, outside of your role, and what are the opportunities right now?
Yeah, so many organizations, which I'm so excited about, are looking at their procurement. I mean, that's a really easy way. And you can benefit from that as a Black-owned marketing company, looking at their procurement opportunities. How are we engaging with Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses? And I will tell you, someone who gets this right is Holly Harrington out at the airport, the Indianapolis Airport Authority. She is just fantastic when you think about the work she's doing for minority business and women-owned business. The other thing that people are looking at is their workforce, right? What are the policies that they have internally that are conducive to people of color and women and veterans and individuals with disabilities filling higher paying jobs, but also creating a climate where folks feel accepted and included? A lot of organizations in Indiana are taking a very intentional focus on that. And I know this because I'm traveling all over the state and talking with mayors and CEOs and COOs, and it's really good. I'm proud of our state right now. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're starting to really be intentional about this.
What would you say right now, in Indiana specific, what's the big myth around DEI that you spend your time like trying to break down, bust, and just dismantle?
That it's only for Black people. Like that, it's one of the most annoying things that I hear is that any DEI initiative is just to promote the interests of Black people, and it's to make white people feel guilty. If DEI is done right, it really is to promote the interests of all of us. Because when all of us have the opportunity to thrive, our organizations perform better when it comes to our bottom line. They perform better when it comes to recruiting and retaining talent. They perform better when it comes to creating products for our customer bases. You can actually expand your bottom line when you can engage with different customers in a new way. And so this myth that anything that has diversity, equity, and inclusion is only for Black people or it's only for the Hispanic community is one of the biggest lies out there. Because you think about Indiana, if we're able to attract and retain the best talent in the world, and we're able to attract and get businesses to come here, the governor has done so much foreign direct investment into the state. The more we do that, the more we lift up our economy as a whole. We have more taxpayers, we have less people in prison, we have people that are performing better with their education, which means that's preparing them for higher paying jobs in the end. We want all Hoosiers to be able to thrive because it makes our state stronger. And it's not just about Black Hoosiers. It's not just about Hispanic Hoosiers. It's not about making white people feel guilty. It's about making all of us have the opportunity to live our best quality of life.
I love how you framed all of that. You know, we at Mojo Up, we launched our campaign in 2022, and we'll be in 23, diverse and talented. And the whole idea was like, you can be both diverse and talented. There's not an or there. And what we're always talking to people about is going like, we have this representation that we can tell your story differently or better because we have this group of people that are from all these different walks of life that just have a thought process, an idea, and they can see things differently than I can by myself or you can or anyone individually. And we always hope that people understand like that's the purpose behind it from our business perspective to help your business. So I guess, you know, here's my last question for you is, what's the big wish? What's the big hope? Like what are we really after at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think for me, it has a lot to do with our vision statement. Making Indiana a lasting leader in equity and inclusion and opportunity so that all Hoosiers have access to the tools necessary to live their best quality of life. I really believe that we can do that through targeted strategic partnerships, through good stewardship of state dollars and private dollars, thinking about procurement. I think we can do that through increasing diversity in our leadership, not just from a race ethnicity standpoint, but gender diversity, geographic location diversity. There's so many different things. And I believe that we'll get there with the right leadership in place. And so my biggest thing right now, Travis, is, what's the future of our state look like in terms of our political leaders, our corporate leaders, our nonprofit leaders? We have to have the right people in place so that we can make Indiana that lasting leader in equity and inclusion. And I think we're on track. So I don't know, maybe I can convince you to run for office one day. You have the charisma, the mind, the connections. So
I'm going to have to learn that deep, passionate response thing that you talked about earlier before I could do that. But listen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, your story, and just what you're doing to make an impact for everybody. We really appreciate it, and we thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
And it's officially
a wrap.
A wrap.